A desolate crater purchase ridiculed by top geologists conceals an extraordinary secret that transforms a struggling single mother's life. Strange crystalline formations begin appearing throughout the barren land, defying scientific explanation. What she ultimately discovers beneath the crater's surface not only silences her critics, but reveals a $350 million treasure that changes her family's destiny forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Emma Winters had always been told she made impulsive decisions. As a single mother of 2 teenagers working as a part-time geology professor at Western Colorado University, her colleagues insisted her latest decision confirmed it. Standing at the edge of the massive depression in the earth she now owned, Emma couldn't entirely disagree with them. $50,000 for a hole in the ground, she muttered, kicking a stone over the edge and watching it tumble down the crater's slope. Maybe they were right. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the 300-foot wide crater, highlighting its perfect circular shape against the rusty Colorado plateau. Her golden retriever Sadie bounded enthusiastically around the rim, seemingly unbothered by the questionable investment her owner had just made. 6 weeks earlier, Emma had been scrolling through obscure real estate listings when she spotted it. Private crater land for sale. 120 acres. Excellent research potential. The listing included several aerial photos of a nearly perfect circular depression in the earth, located about 40 miles from the small town of Ridgway, Colorado, where she lived. Most people would have scrolled past, but something about the formation caught Emma's trained eye. The crater's symmetry was unusual, too perfect to be explained by typical erosion patterns. The geological anomaly tugged at her professional curiosity, but it was the price that made her pause. The land was being sold for a fraction of what similar acreage would cost in the area. Emma had spent 15 years studying impact craters and their geological significance. Her doctoral thesis on meteorite composition had briefly made waves in academic circles before family responsibilities pulled her away from full-time research. Now, as she stared at the property listing, something deep inside whispered that this wasn't just any crater. "Mom, are you seriously considering buying a giant hole in the ground?" her 16-year-old daughter Lily had asked when she found Emma studying topographical maps of the area late one night. "It's not just a hole, honey. It's potentially an impact crater that's never been properly studied," Emma had explained, trying to contain her excitement. "And it's priced absurdly low. There has to be a reason." That reason became apparent when Emma contacted the county records office. The land had been deemed agriculturally worthless after soil testing revealed unusual mineral compositions that made farming impossible. Several developers had considered and abandoned plans for the area, unable to build on the unstable crater floor. The current owner, an elderly man who had inherited it from his father, simply wanted to offload the property before his upcoming move to Florida. When Emma mentioned her interest to her department head, Dr. Marcus Reynolds, he had laughed outright. "Emma, that's the Wilson crater. 3 separate geological surveys have examined it over the past decade. It's just an unusual depression caused by subterranean water erosion. There's nothing special about it except its symmetry, which is a geological curiosity at best. But the mineral composition reports," Emma had begun, "are consistent with the region's unusual soil chemistry," Dr. Reynolds interrupted. "Trust me, if there was anything valuable there, it would have been discovered by now. You'd be throwing away money you don't have." Similar warnings came from every colleague she consulted. Dr. Samantha Peters, the university's leading geochemist, had been particularly blunt. "You're insane to buy that crater. It's been picked over by every amateur meteorite hunter in the state. There's nothing there but dirt and disappointment." Yet something kept pulling Emma back to those aerial photographs. The crater didn't match the profile of water erosion formation she'd studied, and the unusually low iron content in the soil samples contradicted what should be present in a typical meteorite impact site. It was as if something had struck the Earth but left behind chemical signatures that defied conventional analysis. Against all professional advice and her own financial prudence, Emma had withdrawn nearly all her savings money she'd been setting aside for her children's college education and purchased the crater land. The decision had earned her nothing but ridicule from her colleagues and concern from her friends. Now, standing at the edge of her questionable investment, with the setting sun warming her face, Emma wondered if they were right. Had she thrown away her family's financial security on a geological fantasy? "Come on, Sadie," she called to her dog. "Let's see what we actually bought." The descent into the crater was steeper than it had appeared from above. Emma carefully picked her way down the slope, using her hiking pole for balance. The soil was unusual, loose in some areas and surprisingly compact in others. Sadie bounded ahead, her golden fur catching the sunlight as she investigated new smells with canine enthusiasm. Emma had brought basic sampling equipment, collection vials, a small shovel, a hammer, a magnifying glass, and a handheld mineral analyzer she'd borrowed from the university lab. As a precaution, she'd also packed enough supplies for an overnight stay, though she planned to return to town before dark. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The crater floor was oddly flat compared to most natural depressions, almost as if something had been carefully placed there rather than crashing into it. As Emma reached the center, she noticed something unusual. The ground seemed to have a subtle pattern of concentric circles, barely visible unless you were looking for them. "That's definitely not consistent with water erosion," she murmured, pulling out her phone to document the pattern. As she crouched to examine the soil more closely, something caught her eye, a faint glimmer beneath the surface dirt. Using her small shovel, Emma carefully scraped away the top layer of soil to reveal what had caught the light. "What do we have here?" she whispered, brushing away more dirt with her fingers. A small, dark stone with an unusual crystalline structure emerged from the earth. Unlike typical meteorite fragments, which were often heavy and iron-rich, this stone was lightweight and had an almost translucent quality when held up to the light. Thin, web-like patterns ran through its structure, reminiscent of circuit boards, but clearly natural in origin. Emma's heart raced as she examined the fragment. In 15 years of studying meteorite composition, she had never seen anything like it. The stone was warm to the touch despite the cooling evening air, and it seemed to respond to her handling, the internal patterns shifting subtly as she turned it in her hands. Sadie, who had been exploring nearby, suddenly returned to Emma's side, whining softly and staring at the stone. The dog's behavior was unusual. Normally curious about everything, she seemed simultaneously drawn to and wary of the fragment. "It's okay, girl," Emma reassured her, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. As the sun dipped below the crater's rim, Emma decided to collect a few more samples before heading back. She carefully placed the unusual fragment in a collection vial and continued examining the crater floor. Within 20 minutes, she had found 3 more similar stones, each with the same web-like internal patterns and unusual warmth. Something else strange became apparent as twilight descended. The fragments seemed to emit a very faint luminescence, barely perceptible in the growing darkness. Emma might have missed it entirely if she hadn't been packing up her equipment. As the light faded, "These are definitely not typical meteorite fragments," she said to Sadie, who had remained unusually close to her side. Whatever struck here wasn't an ordinary meteorite. Emma's initial plan to return to town before dark was abandoned as her scientific curiosity took over. She set up her small tent near the crater's edge, giving herself a base to continue investigations. Early the next morning, As she prepared a simple dinner on her camping stove, her mind raced with possibilities. The academic community had long accepted that the Wilson crater was unremarkable, but what if everyone had been wrong? What if the unusual mineral composition that made the land agriculturally worthless was actually a clue to something extraordinary? Emma pulled out her satellite phone. Cell service was non-existent this far from town, and called her children. "Hey, Mom," her 14-year-old son Jake answered. "Did you find anything cool in your crater?" "Maybe," Emma said cautiously, not wanting to sound as excited as she felt. "I'm going to stay overnight to do more testing in the morning. Are you and Lily okay at Mrs. Henderson's?" "We're fine. She made lasagna and keeps trying to get us to eat vegetables," Jake reported. "Lily's working on her biology project." "Tell her to come to the phone for a second," Emma requested. Lily's voice came on the line a moment later, tinged with the typical teenage mixture of affection and exasperation. "Mom, please tell me you didn't spend the night in that crater. Because you're stuck or hurt." "I'm perfectly fine," Emma assured her. "I've just found some unusual samples I want to examine more thoroughly in the morning light. The crater has some interesting features that weren't visible in the survey reports." There was a pause before Lily spoke again, her voice softening. "You really think you found something, don't you?" "I don't know yet," Emma admitted. "But it's definitely not what everyone thinks it is." After assuring her children she was safe and would return the following afternoon, Emma ended the call and settled into her sleeping bag. Sadie curled up beside her, still unusually vigilant. Outside the tent, the night was clear, the vast Colorado sky filled with stars that seemed particularly bright this far from town lights. Emma pulled out the collection vials and examined the strange fragments again. In the darkness of the tent, their faint luminescence was more obvious, a subtle, pulsing glow that seemed to strengthen when she held them together. As she drifted towards sleep, the fragments beside her bed continued their gentle illumination, casting soft patterns on the tent walls that reminded Emma of star maps. Her last conscious thought was that whatever she had discovered might finally prove her instincts right and silence those who had called her insane for purchasing the crater. Morning arrived with a spectacular sunrise that painted the crater in shades of gold and amber. Emma woke to find Sadie already alert and watching the collection vials with unusual intensity. The fragments had stopped glowing once daylight arrived, but they still retained their unusual warmth. After a quick breakfast, Emma continued her investigation, this time focusing on the center of the crater where the concentric patterns were most visible. Using ground-penetrating radar equipment she'd borrowed from the university, she began scanning the crater floor systematically. The results were immediately intriguing. Unlike the solid bedrock that should be present, the scanner revealed what appeared to be a large, hollow chamber approximately 15 feet below the surface. The chamber was nearly perfectly spherical, about 30 feet in diameter, and surrounded by an unusual layer of material that the scanner couldn't properly identify. "This can't be natural," Emma muttered, recalibrating the equipment to ensure the readings were accurate. The second scan confirmed her findings. Something large and hollow lay beneath the crater floor, surrounded by material unlike the surrounding geology. Emma's pulse quickened as she marked the exact location of the underground chamber. If her readings were correct, this wasn't just an impact crater. It might be the actual impact object itself, buried and preserved beneath layers of soil and time. Using her shovel, Emma began carefully removing the top layer of soil from the area directly above the chamber. After about 2 feet of digging, her shovel struck something solid. Switching to more delicate tools, she carefully brushed away the remaining dirt to reveal what appeared to be a metallic surface with the same web-like patterns she'd observed in the fragments. "This is incredible," she whispered, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. The exposed section was clearly part of something much larger, a curved piece of what appeared to be an exterior shell or casing. The material wasn't like any metal Emma had encountered in her geological studies. It had an almost organic quality, as if it had been grown rather than forged, with the same circuit-like patterns running throughout its structure. As Emma cleared more of the surface, she noticed something else. The patterns weren't static. They seemed to shift slightly under her touch, responding to her presence. The material was also warm, just like the smaller fragments she'd collected the previous evening. Her scientific training warned her to proceed with caution, but Emma's curiosity was now fully ignited. She continued carefully removing soil, revealing more of the mysterious surface. After several hours of painstaking work, she had uncovered a section approximately 6 feet in diameter, clearly just a small portion of whatever lay beneath. The sun was high overhead when Emma paused to drink water and consider her next steps. She had discovered something unprecedented, potentially an intact meteorite of enormous size and unusual composition. Every scientific instinct told her to document everything meticulously and bring in a proper research team. But another thought nagged at her. The land was legally hers. If she reported her finding immediately, the university would undoubtedly take over the research. Dr. Reynolds and others who had ridiculed her purchase would claim credit for any discoveries, and she might lose control of her own property in Crofanois. The process. Emma had spent years watching her research be sidelined or appropriated by colleagues with more institutional support. As a single mother working part-time to support her family, she had never been able to dedicate herself fully to the field work she loved. This discovery could change everything, not just for science, but for her family's future. I need to understand what this is before I tell anyone, she decided, speaking the words aloud to Sadie, who was watching her with those intelligent, concerned eyes. As Emma continued her careful excavation, she noticed something unusual happening. In the soil surrounding the exposed metallic surface, small crystalline formations were beginning to emerge, delicate, translucent structures that hadn't been present when she began digging. They resembled the web-like patterns in the fragments, but were developing in the ordinary Colorado dirt. More concerning was what happened when Emma checked her phone. The device, which had been working perfectly that morning, now displayed a scrambled screen before shutting down completely. Her satellite phone similarly failed to function, emitting a high-pitched tone before going dark. "That's not good," Emma murmured, suddenly aware of how isolated she was. Without communications, she couldn't contact her children or call for help if something went wrong. The rational decision would be to cover her discovery, return to town, and come back with proper equipment and backup. But as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the crater's rim, Emma made a choice that would alter the course of her life. Just a little more, she told herself, continuing to clear soil from around the metallic surface. As twilight approached, Emma's efforts revealed what appeared to be a seam or edge in the mysterious material. Unlike the natural breaks you would expect in a meteorite, this looked intentional, almost like a door or access point. The web-like patterns converged around this seam, their subtle movements becoming more pronounced as darkness fell. Emma was so absorbed in her discovery that she barely noticed the crystalline formations in the surrounding soil had continued to grow. Now standing several inches tall, they created an otherworldly garden around the excavation site, their structures catching the last rays of sunlight and refracting them in unusual patterns. It wasn't until Sadie began barking urgently that Emma looked up and registered the transformation of the crater around her. The dog was circling anxiously, clearly disturbed by the changes. The crystalline formations had spread in a perfect circle around the excavation, creating a boundary between Emma and the crater's rim. As darkness fell completely, both the exposed meteorite surface and the crystal formations began to emit the same subtle luminescence Emma had observed in the fragments. The light pulsed gently, creating complex patterns that seemed almost like a language or a code. Emma's scientific mind raced to understand what she was witnessing. The meteorite, if that's what it was, appeared to be affecting the surrounding environment, transforming ordinary soil into crystalline structures that mimicked its own internal composition. This wasn't just unusual. It was unprecedented in all of meteorite science. As she stood watching the extraordinary light show unfolding around her, Emma felt a mixture of scientific awe and growing concern. She had discovered something far beyond ordinary meteorite science, something that might redefine humanity's understanding of extraterrestrial material. The question now was whether she had also discovered something dangerous. The seam in the meteorite's surface had begun to pulse more intensely, the web-like patterns flowing toward it like water seeking the lowest point. Emma took an instinctive step back, suddenly wary of what might happen next. "Sadie, come," she called, and the dog obediently returned to her side, pressing against her leg with unusual urgency. As if responding to her caution, the pulsing light stabilized, the frantic movement of patterns slowing to a gentle rhythm. The crystalline formations stopped growing, their structures frozen in mid-formation like a paused video. Emma's scientific curiosity wrestled with her maternal instinct for self-preservation. She had 2 children waiting for her return. Whatever extraordinary discovery she had made, it wasn't worth risking their mother's safety. "We're coming back tomorrow," she told Sadie firmly, gathering her equipment. "With better tools and a better plan." As Emma prepared to leave the excavation site, she carefully collected several of the crystalline formations that had grown from the soil. They detached easily, maintaining their structure and subtle glow even when separated from the ground. The climb back to the crater rim was more challenging in the darkness, but the gentle illumination from the excavation site provided enough light to find her way. Emma kept looking back, watching as the pulsing glow continued its rhythmic pattern, like a beacon in the center of the crater. Reaching her tent, Emma carefully packed the new samples alongside the fragments she'd collected. The previous day, the crystal's luminescence had intensified slightly, responding to proximity with the meteorite fragments. As she settled into her sleeping bag, exhausted from the day's work but too excited to sleep, Emma's mind raced with possibilities. What she had discovered went beyond valuable minerals or scientific curiosity. The responsive nature of the material, its ability to transform surrounding elements, its organized internal patterns, all suggested something far more significant than an ordinary meteorite. If her initial assessment was correct, she hadn't just purchased a worthless crater. She had discovered what might be the most important extraterrestrial object ever found on Earth, one that appeared to be intact and potentially active in some inexplicable way. The financial implications alone were staggering. Even ordinary meteorites could fetch thousands of dollars per gram. A large, intact specimen with unusual properties could be worth millions. Beyond the monetary value, the scientific significance could transform her career and secure her place in geological history. But as Emma drifted toward sleep, watching the gentle pulsing of her samples through half-closed eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that the true value of her discovery might transcend both money and academic recognition. There was something almost alive about the way the meteorite responded to her presence, something that suggested it might have purposes beyond human understanding. Tomorrow she would need to make crucial decisions about how to proceed. For now, surrounded by the vast Colorado night and the gentle glow of something truly extraordinary, Emma allowed herself to feel something she hadn't experienced in years, the pure, unfiltered joy of discovery. The meteorite's secrets waited beneath the crater floor, and Emma Winters, the professor everyone had called insane for her purchase, was the only person on Earth who knew they existed. Emma Winters woke before dawn, her mind already racing, with plans for the day ahead. The crystalline samples she'd collected glowed softly beside her sleeping bag, casting ethereal patterns on the tent walls. Sadie lay alert at the tent entrance, her behavior still unusually vigilant. "Today we find out what's really down there," Emma told the dog, reaching for her satellite phone. To her surprise, the device powered on normally, despite failing the previous evening near the excavation site. She quickly called her children to check in. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily's voice carried a note of concern. "We tried calling you last night but couldn't get through." "I'm fine, honey. Just some equipment issues," Emma assured her, deciding against mentioning the strange technology disruptions. "How are things there?" "Mrs. Henderson is taking us to school, but Jake wanted me to tell you that Dr. Reynolds called the house last night. He was looking for you." Emma frowned. "Did he say what he wanted?" "Just that he needed to discuss something important about the crater property. He sounded kind of weird about it." This news was troubling. Marcus Reynolds had been dismissive of her purchase from the beginning. His sudden interest suggested something had changed. "If he calls again, just tell him I'll be back tomorrow and we'll call him then," Emma instructed. After reassuring Lily everything was fine, she ended the call with a promise to return home the following day. As Emma packed additional excavation equipment, she considered Dr. Reynolds' unexpected interest. Had someone else made similar discoveries nearby? Was there information about the crater he hadn't shared? The morning sun was just beginning to illuminate the crater's eastern rim as Emma returned to her excavation site. What she found stopped her in her tracks. The crystalline formations had not only remained, but had multiplied overnight, creating a dense garden of translucent structures surrounding the exposed meteorite surface. Even more remarkably, the formations had developed definite patterns, concentric circles mirroring the crater itself, with straight lines radiating from the center like spokes on a wheel. "This isn't random growth," Emma murmured, carefully photographing the formations. "This is organized." More surprising still was the change in the exposed meteorite surface. The web-like patterns had rearranged themselves, concentrating around the seam she'd discovered. As Emma approached, the patterns began to pulse more rapidly, as if responding to her presence. She set up her equipment with methodical precision, determined to document everything properly before proceeding. Using ground-penetrating radar again, she discovered the underground chamber had changed overnight. Internal structures had shifted, creating what appeared to be pathways or channels throughout the spherical space. "It's reconfiguring itself," she whispered, both thrilled and unnerved by the implications. Emma's scientific training told her to proceed with extreme caution. Anything capable of independent reconfiguration and environmental transformation was potentially dangerous. But her instincts, the same ones that had led her to purchase the crater, despite universal ridicule, told her something different. Whatever lay beneath the surface wasn't threatening. It was revealing itself specifically to her. With renewed determination, Emma began carefully expanding her excavation around the seam in the meteorite surface. As she worked, she noticed something extraordinary. The soil was moving aside more easily than it should, almost as if it were cooperating with her efforts. By midday, Emma had exposed a section of the meteorite approximately 12 feet in diameter. The seam was now clearly visible, a perfect circle about 3 feet across, its edges lined with more intricate patterns than the surrounding surface. The web-like designs flowed toward this circle, like water circling a drain, their movement becoming more pronounced as Emma cleared away the final layer of soil. Sadie, who had been keeping a watchful distance, suddenly approached and sat directly beside Emma, her eyes fixed on the circular seam. The dog's behavior had shifted from wariness to what almost seemed like protective attentiveness. Emma wiped sweat from her brow, considering her next steps. The circular seam resembled an access point or door, but there was no obvious way to open it. As she knelt beside the exposed surface, studying the flowing patterns, her hand inadvertently touched the edge of the seam. The response was immediate and astonishing. The patterns beneath her fingers illuminated with increased intensity, and a soft humming vibration traveled up her arm. Emma instinctively pulled back, but not before noticing that the patterns had briefly synchronized with her pulse, as if the meteorite had momentarily connected with her cardiovascular system. "That's definitely not normal meteorite behavior," she said to Sadie, her scientific mind struggling to process what she'd experienced. After a moment's hesitation, Emma deliberately placed her palm against the seam again. The connection re-established instantly, the patterns flowing toward her hand and the vibration returning. This time, instead of pulling away, she allowed the sensation to continue. The vibration spread gradually up her arm and across her shoulder, eventually reaching her chest. Rather than being painful, it created an unusual sense of warmth and awareness. Emma could suddenly feel her own heartbeat with extraordinary clarity, and as the connection strengthened, she became aware of something else, a second rhythm, distinct from her own, pulsing from within the meteorite. The web-like patterns began to synchronize, flowing in perfect harmony with both rhythms. The circular seam beneath Emma's hand grew warm, the material softening slightly beneath her touch. Before she could decide whether to withdraw, the seam began to open, not mechanically like a door, but organically like a flower unfurling its petals. Emma scrambled backward, watching in astonishment as the circular section of the meteorite's surface transformed. The material separated into perfectly symmetrical segments that folded outward, revealing a dark space beyond. The process was silent and fluid, more like a biological function than a mechanical operation. As the opening completed its transformation, a soft light emerged from within, illuminating Emma's face with a gentle blue glow. The light pulsed rhythmically, matching the beat she had felt synchronizing with her own heart. "This is incredible," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. Scientific caution urged her to stop, to retreat, and bring in experts before proceeding further. But Emma knew that once others became involved, she would lose control of her discovery. This moment, this connection, would be analyzed, categorized, and ultimately diminished by institutional processes and competing academic agendas. Taking a deep breath, Emma moved forward and peered into the opening. The interior of the meteorite was unlike anything she could have imagined. Rather than the solid mass of rock and metal she expected, the space within was hollow and structured, a spherical chamber lined with the same web-like patterns. But here they were fully three-dimensional, creating an intricate lattice throughout the interior. At the center of the chamber, suspended in mid-air without any visible support, was a crystalline structure approximately the size of a basketball. Unlike the formations that had grown in the soil, this crystal was perfectly formed, a complex, geometric shape with hundreds of facets that caught and refracted the blue light in mesmerizing patterns. The suspended crystal was the source of the light, pulsing with what Emma now recognized was exactly the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Somehow, the meteorite had established a synchronization between her cardiovascular system and whatever energy animated this central object. Emma's mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of power source? A data storage system? A seed of some kind? Nothing in her geological training provided a framework for understanding what she was seeing. As she stared at the suspended crystal, the lattice structures within the chamber began to shift, creating what appeared to be a pathway from the entrance to the central object. It was an unmistakable invitation. "Stay," Emma commanded Sadie, who whined softly but remained outside the opening. Taking another deep breath, Emma carefully lowered herself into the chamber. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, neither hot nor cold, with a slight resistance to movement, as if the air were somewhat denser than outside. The pathway of lattice structures illuminated as she moved forward, lighting her way toward the central crystal. As Emma approached the suspended object, she noticed something extraordinary. The crystal was responding to her proximity by rearranging its internal structure. Facets shifted and realigned, creating new patterns that seemed to reach toward her. The pulsing light intensified, and Emma felt the vibration return, stronger now, resonating through her entire body. Driven by a combination of scientific curiosity and an inexplicable sense of rightness, Emma reached out toward the crystal. The moment her fingertips made contact, the world around her transformed. A flood of information surged through the connection, not as words or images, but as pure understanding that bypassed her normal cognitive processes. Emma suddenly knew, with absolute certainty, that the object before her was not a meteorite in any conventional sense. It was a seed vault, a repository of biological and geological information from another star system, sent to Earth deliberately. The knowledge continued to flow, explaining without language that the vault contained detailed information about thousands of mineral compounds and crystalline structures, unknown to Earth science. Many of these had extraordinary properties, energy generation, structural applications, medical uses, that could revolutionize human technology. The vault had been designed to remain dormant until discovered by a being capable of understanding and responsibly using its contents. Emma also understood why the vault had been buried in the crater. It hadn't created the impact site. It had deliberately landed in a natural depression that matched its requirements for depth, mineral composition, and isolation. The crater's reputation as scientifically worthless had been its perfect camouflage, protecting it from discovery until the right person came along. Most incredibly, Emma realized that the vault had chosen her. The unusual warmth of the fragments, the responsive patterns, the synchronization with her heartbeat, all had been the vault's way of assessing her suitability as its discoverer. The knowledge it contained was meant to be found, but only by someone who would approach it with the right combination of scientific curiosity and responsible caution. The flow of information slowed, allowing Emma to process what she had learned. The central crystal was both a storage system and a key. It contained the full catalog of the vault's contents and could activate or deactivate the production of any material within that catalog. With this understanding came a choice. Emma could remove the crystal, taking with her the key to potentially world-changing technologies. Or she could leave it in place, maintaining the vault's integrity while she decided how best to approach her discovery. The decision seemed obvious. Emma carefully withdrew her hand from the crystal, the connection fading as she did so. The flood of information receded, leaving behind a clear understanding of what she had found and what it meant. This wasn't just a scientific discovery, it was a responsibility. As Emma backed away toward the entrance, the lattice structure shifted again, maintaining her pathway. The chamber seemed to acknowledge her decision, the pulsing light growing calmer as she reached the opening and carefully climbed out. Sadie greeted her with enthusiastic relief, circling and sniffing as if checking for changes. Emma sat heavily on the ground beside her excavation, her mind reeling from what she had experienced. "We need to protect this," she told Sadie, reaching out to stroke the dog's fur. "And we need to be very careful about who we tell." The implications of her discovery were staggering. The vault contained information about materials worth billions, possibly trillions of dollars. Beyond monetary value, it held solutions to problems humans had been struggling with for generations: energy production, structural engineering, medicine, environmental restoration. If weaponized or monopolized, this information could destabilize global power structures and economies. If shared too broadly without proper controls, it could trigger chaos in markets and industries worldwide. But if managed carefully, it could help address some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Emma's first instinct was to protect her children. With the understanding provided by the vault, she now recognized that the crystalline formations growing throughout the crater were early manifestations of the vault's contents, simplified versions of the complex materials cataloged within. Even these basic formations would be worth millions to the right buyers. Carefully collecting several of the crystalline structures, Emma packed them securely in her sample case. These would be enough to establish the scientific legitimacy and commercial value of her discovery without revealing its true nature or location. As the sun began its descent toward the crater's western rim, Emma made a decision. She would temporarily conceal the entrance to the vault, return to town, and seek legal protection for her discovery before revealing it to the scientific community. The land was legally hers, but she would need expert advice to maintain control of whatever was found on it. Using the remaining daylight, Emma carefully reburied the circular entrance, marking its exact location with measurements and photographs. The crystalline garden surrounding the excavation site had continued to expand, now covering nearly 50 feet in diameter. These formations would be impossible to hide completely, but the crater's remote location would provide temporary protection. As darkness fell, Emma returned to her camp on the crater's rim, her sample case securely stowed with her gear. Her satellite phone showed no service again. Something about the crater's energy disrupted communications after dark. She would need to wait until morning to contact anyone. Settling into her sleeping bag, Emma found her mind racing with possibilities. The revelation that the vault had chosen her specifically was both flattering and intimidating. What had it recognized in her that made her suitable? Was it simply her geological training, or something more fundamental about her approach to discovery? Sleep came fitfully, her dreams filled with crystalline structures and flowing patterns of light. When Emma woke shortly after dawn, she found that her connection to the vault hadn't entirely faded. She could sense its presence below the crater floor, a gentle awareness like knowing a friend was in the next room. After packing her camp and loading her vehicle, Emma took one last look at the crater that had transformed her understanding of the universe. From the rim, there was little visible evidence of the extraordinary discovery below, just some unusual crystalline formations catching the morning light near her excavation site. "We'll be back soon," she promised silently, both to the vault and to herself. The drive back to Ridgeway took nearly 2 hours, giving Emma time to formulate a plan. She would need legal representation immediately, someone specialized in mineral rights and scientific discoveries. She would also need a secure storage facility for her samples and a laboratory where she could begin analyzing them without institutional oversight. As she approached the outskirts of town, her phone regained service, immediately buzzing with missed calls and messages. Several were from Dr. Reynolds, each sounding increasingly urgent. There were also calls from numbers she didn't recognize, including one from a major mining company's geological division. Emma's suspicion deepened. How had a mining company gotten her personal number? Why was Reynolds suddenly so interested in land he had dismissed as worthless? Instead of heading home, Emma drove directly to First Western Bank, where she rented the largest safe deposit box available. The crystalline samples, securely wrapped and boxed, would be safe there until she had proper legal protection in place. Her next stop was the office of Patricia Lawson, the most respected attorney in Ridgeway. Though she had no appointment, Emma was prepared to wait all day if necessary. Fortunately, Patricia had a cancellation and was able to see her within the hour. "I've made a significant discovery on my property," Emma explained once they were seated in Patricia's office. "Before I reveal it to anyone else, I need to understand my legal rights and protections." The attorney's eyebrows rose. "The crater. Land? I heard about that purchase. Most people thought it was." She paused diplomatically. "Insane," Emma finished for her. "Yes, I'm aware of the general opinion. That opinion is about to change dramatically." Emma carefully unwrapped one of the smaller crystalline samples she'd kept with her, rather than storing at the bank. As she placed it on Patricia's desk, the attorney leaned forward, clearly intrigued by the unusual formation. "This is just a small example of what I've found," Emma explained. Initial testing suggests these crystals have unique properties unlike anything currently known to science. Their potential applications and value are significant. Patricia Lawson had represented enough mining and technology clients to recognize the implications. How significant are we talking? Emma met her gaze steadily. Based on my preliminary analysis, the materials I've discovered could be worth hundreds of millions, possibly billions. But that's not all. There's something on my land that goes beyond valuable minerals. Something that could change our understanding of. She hesitated, then finished. Everything. The attorney sat back, studying Emma carefully. After a moment, she nodded. You've come to the right place. First, we need to secure your discovery with proper legal protections. Then we need to develop a strategy for controlled disclosure that maintains your ownership rights while allowing for scientific documentation. For the next 2 hours, they discussed options. Patricia recommended immediately filing for mineral rights reinforcement, research site designation, and specialized patents based on the crystalline structures. She also suggested bringing in a small team of trusted experts under strict non-disclosure agreements to help document and validate Emma's findings. What about Dr. Reynolds? Emma asked, explaining his sudden interest in the calls from unknown mining companies. Patricia's expression hardened. That suggests information leakage. Someone may have detected unusual readings from the crater. Site, magnetic anomalies, radiation signatures, something that indicated valuable minerals. We need to move quickly to protect your interests. By the time Emma left Patricia's office, she had a clear plan and the beginning of a legal safety net. Her next stop was home, where she needed to check on her children and prepare them for the changes coming to their lives. As she pulled into the driveway of her modest ranch house, Emma noticed an unfamiliar black SUV parked across the street. The vehicle's windows were tinted, but she could make out the silhouette of someone watching her house. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the stakes had just increased dramatically. Someone already suspected the value of what she'd found. Enough to place her home under surveillance. The race to protect her discovery had begun sooner than she'd anticipated. Inside, she found Lily and Jake doing homework at the kitchen table, unaware of the vehicle outside or the extraordinary developments of the past 2 days. "Mom!" Jake exclaimed, jumping up to hug her. "Did you find anything cool in your crater?" Emma hugged him tightly, then embraced Lily as well. Looking at their faces, curious, innocent, unaware of how completely their lives were about to change, Emma felt the weight of her responsibility more keenly than ever. "Actually," she said carefully, "I found something incredible. Something that's going to change everything for us. But right now, we need to pack some bags. We're going to stay with Aunt Sarah for a few days while I sort some things out." Lily's expression sharpened with concern. "Mom, what's going on? Is something wrong?" Emma considered how much to reveal. Her children deserved honesty, but she also needed to protect them from the full implications until proper safeguards were in place. "Nothing's wrong," she assured them. "In fact, something is very, very right. I've made a discovery that's going to secure our future and help a lot of people. But right now, it needs to be kept private while I work with lawyers to protect it." "Is that why Dr. Reynolds keeps calling?" Jake asked. "He called again this afternoon. Said it was urgent you contact him." Emma's concern deepened. "Probably. Pack enough for a week. Clothes, schoolwork, whatever you need. We're leaving in 30 minutes. As the children hurried to pack, Emma quickly gathered essential documents, property deeds, identification, financial records, and secured them in her travel safe. Whatever happened next, she needed to be prepared. The crystalline sample in her pocket seemed to pulse slightly, as if responding to her heightened emotions. The connection to the vault remained, a distant awareness at the edge of her consciousness. Emma drew strength from it, reminded of why the vault had chosen her specifically. She would protect this discovery, not just for her family's security, but for its potential to help humanity. The path ahead would be challenging, with powerful interests already circling. But Emma Winters, the professor everyone had called insane, was now the guardian of something extraordinary. And she was determined to prove that her insane purchase had been the wisest decision of her life. The black SUV followed Emma's family for 3 miles before she managed to lose it with a series of unexpected turns through Ridgeway's back streets. As she drove toward her sister Sarah's house in Grand Junction, Emma's mind raced with questions. Who was watching her home? How had they connected her to the crater's secret so quickly? "Mom, you're driving like we're in an action movie," Lily observed from the back seat, looking up from her phone. "Is someone actually following us?" Emma met her daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. At 16, Lily was perceptive and mature beyond her years, a trait Emma had always admired, but now found challenging. Her children deserved the truth, but the full truth might frighten them unnecessarily. "Someone is very interested in my discovery," Emma acknowledged, choosing her words carefully. "I want to make sure we control how and when we share information about it. Is it worth a lot of money?" Jake asked, his 14-year-old mind immediately grasping the practical implications. "Yes," Emma said simply. "But its true value goes beyond money. It could help solve problems that scientists have been working on for decades." The highway stretched before them, cutting through the dramatic Colorado landscape as they climbed toward the Continental Divide. Emma's satellite phone rang, the special ringtone she'd assigned to Patricia Lawson. "I have news," the attorney said without preamble when Emma answered. "Someone filed a claim with the Bureau of Land Management challenging your ownership of the mineral rights on the crater property. They're claiming the land sale didn't properly transfer subsurface rights." Emma's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Who filed the claim?" "A company called Nexus Geological Enterprises. Ever heard of them?" "No," Emma replied, though the name triggered an uneasy feeling. "They're a subsidiary of Quantum Resources International, one of the largest mining conglomerates in the world," Patricia explained. "I've already filed a counterclaim asserting your full ownership rights, but this suggests someone has specific information about what's on your land." Emma thought about the black SUV and Dr. Reynolds' sudden interest. "Can they access my property while this claim is being disputed?" "Not legally, but that doesn't mean they won't try. I'm arranging for security personnel to monitor the site starting tonight. In the meantime, I've expedited the paperwork for research site designation, which will give us additional legal protection." After ending the call, Emma briefed her children on the situation in simplified terms, explaining that valuable minerals on their land had attracted attention from a big company trying to claim ownership. Their safety wasn't at risk, she assured them, but staying with Aunt Sarah would keep them away from unwanted attention while the legal issues were resolved. Sarah welcomed them with characteristic warmth, asking few questions when Emma explained. They needed to stay for a while due to a complicated situation with her crater property. As a pediatric nurse who had raised 3 children of her own, Sarah was both pragmatic and discreet, qualities Emma deeply appreciated now. That evening, after the children had settled in, Emma sat with her sister on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of purple and gold. "So," Sarah said, handing Emma a glass of wine, "are you going to tell me what's really going on? Because I'm guessing it's more than a real estate dispute." Emma hesitated, then reached into her pocket and carefully withdrew one of the smallest crystalline samples. In the fading light, it began to glow softly, its internal patterns shifting like liquid light. Sarah's eyes widened. "What is that?" "The beginning of something extraordinary," Emma replied, explaining her discovery in cautious terms. "Valuable crystalline formations with unusual properties, potentially worth millions, currently being targeted by corporate interests." She omitted the vault's alien origin and its conscious selection of her as its guardian. Even Sarah, her closest confidant, might struggle to accept those aspects without seeing the evidence firsthand. "Emma," Sarah said seriously after examining the crystal, "if this is really worth what you think it is, you need to be extremely careful. People have been killed for discoveries worth far less." "I know," Emma acknowledged. "That's why we're here. Patricia is helping me secure legal protection, and I've got security watching the crater site." What Emma didn't share was her growing awareness of another kind of security, the vault itself. Throughout the journey to Grand Junction, she had felt the distant connection strengthening rather than fading with distance. Somehow, the link established in the crater remained intact, a constant presence at the edge of her consciousness. Through this connection, Emma sensed that the vault was not passive in its own defense. The crystalline formation spreading throughout. The crater served multiple purposes, not just showcasing the extraordinary materials within the vault, but creating a protective perimeter that would respond to unauthorized intrusion. That night, as Emma tried to sleep in Sarah's guest room, the connection suddenly intensified. She sat up in bed, heart racing, as vivid awareness flooded her mind. Someone was at the crater site. The vault's defensive systems had activated. Emma grabbed her satellite phone and called Patricia's emergency number. "Our security team just reported multiple vehicles and personnel entering the crater," Patricia confirmed before Emma could speak. "They're observing from a distance rather than confronting directly, as instructed." "Who are they?" Emma demanded. "Unknown. Professional equipment, no visible identification. They're conducting some kind of survey using advanced technology. Our team reports unusual light phenomena throughout the crater floor." Emma knew immediately what was happening. The vault was responding to the intrusion, likely by accelerating the growth of crystalline formations. The intruders would be witnessing extraordinary phenomena, but without the connection Emma had established, they wouldn't understand what they were seeing or how to access the vault itself. "Tell your security team to maintain distance, but document everything," Emma instructed. "These people are trespassing on private property, and I want evidence for potential legal action." After ending the call, Emma sat in the darkness, focusing on the connection with the vault. She couldn't control it directly, but she could sense its defensive measures activating, crystalline barriers forming, energy fields disrupting electronic equipment, confusing patterns of light and movement, designed to disorient intruders. By morning, Patricia reported that the unknown team had withdrawn after several hours, taking samples but appearing frustrated in their efforts. Emma's security personnel had documented everything with long-range cameras and recording equipment. They were professionals, Patricia said. Military precision, advanced technology. "This isn't just a mining company looking for valuable minerals, Emma. Someone knows exactly what you've found." This assessment was confirmed later that day when Dr. Marcus Reynolds himself appeared at Sarah's front door. Emma was upstairs reviewing legal documents when Sarah called her down, saying a colleague had tracked her down. Reynolds stood in the living room looking decidedly uncomfortable, his usually impeccable appearance rumpled, his expression tense. When he saw Emma, relief washed over his face. "Thank God you're all right," he said, stepping forward. "I've been trying to reach you for days." Emma remained by the doorway, maintaining distance. "Why this sudden concern, Marcus? Last week you called me insane for purchasing that crater." Reynolds glanced nervously at Sarah, then back to Emma. "Can we speak privately? This is a sensitive matter." "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of my sister," Emma replied firmly. Reynolds sighed, then nodded. "Very well. I need to warn you about the crater site. It's not what you think it is." "Actually," Emma countered, "I think it's exactly what it is. What's changed is your interest in it. You don't understand. The forces you're dealing with," Reynolds insisted, lowering his voice. The Wilson crater has been under observation by certain government agencies for decades. The worthless land narrative was deliberately cultivated to keep people away. Emma's suspicion deepened. Which government agencies? I can't say. Specifically, Reynolds hedged. I was approached shortly after you purchased the property. They wanted me to convince you to sell the land back. To whom? Emma demanded. A corporate entity that serves as a front for their research operations, Nexus Geological Enterprises. The same company that had filed the mineral rights challenge. Emma's mind raced with implications. If Reynolds was telling the truth, she wasn't just dealing with corporate interests, but potentially government agencies with far greater resources and authority. Why are they interested in the crater? Emma asked, watching Reynolds carefully. He hesitated, clearly weighing how much to reveal. Unusual energy signatures have been detected there periodically for years. Nothing consistent enough to warrant direct intervention, but enough to keep it under passive surveillance. And now? Emma pressed. Now something has changed. The energy signatures have intensified dramatically over the past 3 days. That's why they sent in a team last night. Emma felt a chill. The timeline matched perfectly with her discovery of the vault and the activation of its systems. Whatever surveillance had been in place had detected the changes. What do they think is causing these energy signatures? She asked carefully. Reynolds looked uncomfortable again. There are various theories. Mineral deposits with unusual properties. Natural geological processes we don't fully understand. Or... He paused, then continued reluctantly, non-terrestrial technology. The words hung in the air between them. Emma kept her expression neutral, but her heart raced. Reynolds, or whoever had sent him, was much closer to the truth than she had anticipated. And what do you think, Marcus? She asked. I think you're in danger, he replied bluntly. These people aren't just curious scientists. They believe whatever is in that crater could have significant national security implications. They won't let legal technicalities stop them from acquiring it. Emma studied her colleague, trying to determine his true allegiance. Was he genuinely concerned for her safety, or was this an attempt to manipulate her into cooperation? What exactly are you suggesting I do? She asked. Cooperate, Reynolds said simply. Grant access to qualified researchers. Share whatever you've discovered. You'll be fully credited and compensated. But the crater and its contents need to be properly studied under controlled conditions. By Nexus Geological Enterprises? Emma asked skeptically. Reynolds sighed. They have the resources and clearance to handle unusual discoveries. Emma made a decision. Moving to her bag, she retrieved one of the crystalline samples. Not the most remarkable one, but impressive enough to make her point. She placed it on the coffee table between them. This is one of the smaller formations I found in the crater, she said. Initial analysis suggests it has unique properties unlike any known mineral. There are thousands more at the site, many much larger and more complex. Reynolds stared at the crystal, his scientific curiosity visibly overwhelming his caution. He reached toward it, then hesitated, looking to Emma for permission. She nodded. As his fingers touched the crystal, it responded immediately, illuminating more brightly and shifting its internal patterns. Reynolds jerked his hand back in. Surprise! It's responsive to biological contact, Emma explained. Different patterns emerge depending on who touches it and how. The formations appear to be growing throughout the crater, creating complex structures with properties we're just beginning to understand. Reynolds looked up at her, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. Do you understand what you've discovered? Better than you might think, Emma replied carefully. The question is, what happens next? Because I won't surrender control of this discovery to unnamed government agencies or corporate fronts without guarantees. What kind of guarantees? Reynolds asked. Complete transparency, public disclosure of all research. shared benefits from any technological applications, and absolute legal protection for me and my family. Reynolds shook his head. They'll never agree to full public disclosure. Not if there are non-terrestrial implications. Then we have nothing more to discuss, Emma said firmly. My attorney is already building a legal fortress around my discovery. Any attempt to seize the crater or its contents will trigger immediate public disclosure of everything I found, including detailed documentation of government interference. This was a bluff. Emma hadn't actually prepared such documentation. But Reynolds couldn't know that. His expression suggested the threat had hit home. You're playing a dangerous game, Emma, he warned. These people don't respond well to threats. Neither do I, she countered. But I'm open to genuine collaboration if approached honestly and ethically. You can tell your contacts that. After Reynolds departed, promising to relay her position, Sarah turned to Emma with wide eyes. Non-terrestrial technology? Emma, what have you really found in that crater? Emma took a deep breath, then told her sister everything. The vault, the alien origin, the connection she had established, the information transfer. Sarah listened without interruption, her expression moving from skepticism to wonder as Emma shared details that couldn't be explained by conventional science. I believe you, Sarah said finally. As crazy as it sounds, I believe you. But Emma, this is bigger than legal battles over mineral rights. If what you've found is really of alien origin, it changes everything, Emma finished for her. I know, that's why I need to control how this information emerges. In the wrong hands, this technology could be weaponized or monopolized. Used properly, it could help solve some of humanity's most pressing problems. That evening, Emma received another call from Patricia. The attorney had uncovered more information about Nexus Geological Enterprises and its parent company, Quantum Resources International. The corporate structure is deliberately complicated, Patricia explained, but I've traced ownership through several shells. The controlling interest belongs to a man named Victor Harrington. The name was vaguely familiar to Emma. The tech billionaire? Former military intelligence turned technology investor, Patricia confirmed. He's built an empire specializing in exotic materials and advanced computing systems. Most of his companies have significant government contracts, particularly with defense and intelligence agencies. The picture was becoming clearer. Victor Harrington, with his combination of government connections, technological expertise, and unlimited resources, would certainly recognize the value of what lay beneath the crater. If he had been monitoring the site for years, as Reynolds suggested, he might have more information about the vault's origin and purpose than Emma herself. There's more, Patricia continued. I've been approached by Harrington's legal team. They're offering to drop the mineral rights challenge in exchange for a partnership agreement. They want to meet with you tomorrow to discuss terms. Emma considered her options. Meeting with Harrington's representatives would be risky but potentially informative. She needed to understand what they knew and what they wanted before deciding. Her next move, set up the meeting, she decided. But on neutral ground, with you present and recorded with all parties' knowledge. The following morning, Emma entered Patricia's law office to find 3 people waiting. 2 attorneys in expensive suits and a woman, whose bearing suggested military training despite her civilian clothes. Dr. Winters, the woman greeted her, extending her hand. I'm Diane Foster, Chief Security Officer for Quantum Resources International. Mr. Harrington sends his regrets that he couldn't attend personally. The meeting lasted 2 hours and revealed much about Harrington's knowledge and intentions. Without explicitly mentioning alien origins, Foster outlined their awareness of unique material properties and unprecedented energy signatures at the crater site. Their proposal was straightforward, a joint research venture with shared intellectual property rights, funded entirely by Quantum Resources. Mr. Harrington believes what you've discovered could revolutionize multiple industries, Foster explained. He's prepared to invest hundreds of millions in research and development, with you as a full partner and scientific lead. The offer was tempting on its surface: unlimited resources to explore the vault's contents, legitimate scientific cover for her research, and financial security for her family. But Emma detected the careful omissions in Foster's presentation. There was no mention of government involvement, though Reynolds had clearly indicated it existed. No discussion of the broader implications of non-terrestrial technology. No guarantees about how the discoveries would be shared or applied. "I'll need time to consider your proposal," Emma said after the terms had been presented. "And I'll need more information about Mr. Harrington's intentions regarding government involvement and public disclosure." Foster's expression hardened. "Slightly. Mr. Harrington understands the national security implications of certain discoveries. He works closely with appropriate agencies when necessary. Then those agencies should be represented in any agreement we reach," Emma countered. "I won't enter a partnership only to discover later that classified designations prevent me from directing my own research." The meeting ended with formal pleasantries but underlying tension. As Foster and her legal team departed, Patricia turned to Emma with concern. "They know much more than they're saying," the attorney observed. "And I don't trust their apparent willingness to give you so much control. Companies like Quantum Resources don't share power easily," Emma agreed. The meeting had confirmed her suspicions that powerful interests already understood much about the crater's significance. Her window for independent action was closing rapidly. That night, as Emma tried to sleep in Sarah's guest room, the connection with the vault intensified again. Unlike the previous night's defensive response, this felt like a deliberate communication, urgent and focused. Through the link, Emma sensed the vault was revealing more of its purpose and capabilities. Images and concepts flooded her mind, crystalline technologies that could transform energy production and storage, materials that could revolutionize construction and transportation, medical applications that could cure diseases considered untreatable, environmental restoration systems that could repair damaged ecosystems. But there was something else, a warning. The vault was showing her potential misuses of its knowledge, weapons of unimaginable power, surveillance systems that would eliminate all privacy control mechanisms that could subjugate populations. The message was clear. This knowledge in the wrong hands could be catastrophic. Emma woke at dawn with absolute clarity about what she needed to do. The vault had chosen her as its guardian, not just to protect its physical location, but to ensure its knowledge was shared appropriately. Victor Harrington and his government connections represented exactly the kind of centralized, secretive control the vault was warning against. She called Patricia immediately. "We need a different approach," she explained. "Instead of fighting Harrington directly or entering a partnership we can't control, we need to change the playing field entirely. What do you have in mind?" Patricia asked. "Full disclosure on our terms. Not just about the crystalline formations, but about everything, the vault, its contents, its potential. We create a non-profit research foundation with international oversight and transparent governance. We release enough information to establish the legitimacy of the discovery while maintaining control of the most sensitive aspects. Harrington will fight this with everything he has," Patricia warned. "Which is why we need leverage he can't overcome," Emma replied. "I'm going back to the crater. There's something I need to retrieve." Despite Patricia's objections and Sarah's concerns, Emma prepared to return to her property. The risk was significant. Harrington's people were certainly monitoring the site, but she needed direct access to the vault to implement her plan. Before leaving, she sat down with Lily and Jake, explaining as much as she could about the situation. Their reactions surprised and moved her. "You're like those scientists in movies who discover something amazing and have to protect it from the bad guys," Jake said, with unexpected maturity. "That's pretty cool, Mom." Lily was more practical. "What can we do to help?" "Because you shouldn't do this alone." Emma had intended to leave them safely with Sarah, but their response made her reconsider. They were already involved by virtue of being her children. Perhaps giving them appropriate roles would be better than leaving them in anxious uncertainty. "Jake, I need you to help Aunt Sarah set up secure cloud storage for documentation we'll be creating." "Lily, you have the best organizational skills." "In the family, I need you to help categorize and label samples and images according to a system Patricia's team will provide." Both teenagers nodded solemnly, clearly understanding the significance of the tasks. Emma hugged them tightly, drawing strength from their support and trust. "We're going to change the world," she told them softly. "Not by keeping secrets, but by sharing them wisely." As Emma prepared for her return to the crater, she felt the vault's presence more strongly than ever. The connection had evolved beyond the initial synchronization to become a true partnership. Whatever happened next, she would not face it alone. The single parent who had been ridiculed for purchasing a worthless crater was now the guardian of knowledge that could transform human civilization. The responsibility was enormous, but for the first time in years, Emma Winters felt absolutely certain of her purpose. The journey back to the crater would be dangerous, but necessary. The true test of her discovery and her courage was about to begin. Emma approached the crater under cover of darkness, using a circuitous route that avoided the main access road. Satellite imagery from Patricia's security team had confirmed multiple surveillance points around the property perimeter, but they had identified a narrow ravine on the western edge that remained unmonitored. The night sky above Colorado bloomed with stars, their light sufficient to navigate the rough terrain without artificial illumination. Emma moved carefully, carrying only essential equipment in a lightweight backpack. Her plan required stealth and speed: get in, access the vault, retrieve what she needed, and exit before Harrington's people detected her presence. As she neared the crater rim, Emma sensed the vault's awareness of her approach. The connection that had been building over the past days intensified, providing an almost navigational certainty about where to place each step. It was as if the ground itself was guiding her, helping her avoid loose rocks or noisy brush. Cresting the rim, Emma was stunned by the transformation below. The crystalline formations had expanded dramatically, covering nearly the entire crater floor with geometric structures that caught the starlight and amplified it. The effect was breathtaking, a garden of luminescent crystals creating patterns, too perfect to be natural, yet too organic to be manufactured. More concerning were the signs of intrusion: equipment positioned around the crater's edge, sampling stations set up near larger crystal formations, a temporary shelter erected near her original excavation site. Harrington's team had been busy during her absence, though they appeared to have withdrawn for the night. Emma descended carefully, using natural features to shield her movement. The crystalline garden responded to her presence, subtly illuminating a path forward while remaining dim elsewhere. This responsive behavior would normally fascinate her scientifically, but now it served a practical purpose, allowing her to navigate while minimizing visible light that might alert monitoring systems. Reaching the center where she had uncovered the vault entrance, Emma found evidence of attempted excavation. Harrington's team had tried to expand her initial dig, but appeared to have encountered difficulty. The ground around the site was disturbed, but the vault entrance remained secure, covered by the soil she had replaced before leaving. Emma knelt and placed her palm against the ground, focusing on the connection she shared with the vault. Immediately, she understood what had happened. The vault had activated advanced emissive measures. The soil above the entrance had been molecularly reinforced, becoming nearly impenetrable to conventional tools. Only she, as the recognized guardian, could now access the entrance. "Clever," she whispered, carefully clearing away the surface soil. As her fingers touched the reinforced earth, it responded differently than it had for Harrington's team, softening and yielding to her touch. Within minutes, Emma had re-exposed the circular seam in the meteorite surface. It pulsed with recognition, the web-like patterns flowing toward her hands. Emma glanced around, confirming she was still undetected, then placed both palms firmly against the seam. The connection established instantly, the familiar vibration traveling up her arms and synchronizing with her heartbeat. The circular entrance responded as before, its segments folding outward to reveal the chamber within. The crystalline core suspended at the center of the vault shone more brightly than during her first visit, illuminating the intricate lattice structures that lined the chamber. Emma carefully entered, the pathway forming before her as she approached. The core. Through their connection, Emma communicated her intention, not with words but with focused thought and emotion. She needed something that would serve as irrefutable evidence of the vault's origin and purpose, something that would demonstrate its potential while protecting its most sensitive contents. The suspended crystal responded, its facets shifting. To create new configurations, a section of the core separated, forming a smaller crystal about the size of Emma's palm. This fragment contained a carefully curated selection of the vault's knowledge, enough to prove its extraterrestrial origin and demonstrate revolutionary applications in energy, medicine, and environmental restoration, but without the weapons, potential or more dangerous technologies. As Emma reached for the crystal fragment, she understood it was more than just a data storage device. It was a key that would respond only to her genetic signature and those she specifically authorized. The vault was entrusting her with a controlled portion of its knowledge, a perfect tool for implementing her disclosure plan. The moment her fingers touched the fragment, information flowed into her consciousness, not the overwhelming flood of her first contact, but a structured transfer that she could comprehend and retain. The fragment contained blueprints for 5 specific technologies that would transform human civilization without destabilizing it. A crystalline energy system that could generate clean power from ambient thermal differentials, eliminating the need for fossil fuels. A medical application that could identify and repair cellular damage at the molecular level, potentially curing numerous diseases. An agricultural enhancement that could quadruple crop yields while restoring soil health and eliminating the need for chemical fertilizers. A water purification system that could clean contaminated sources with minimal energy input. A carbon sequestration technology that could begin reversing climate change within a decade. Each technology was presented with complete theoretical frameworks but required human participation to implement. A deliberate safeguard ensuring that development would proceed at a pace humanity could integrate responsibly. As the knowledge transfer completed, Emma carefully secured the crystal fragment in a specialized container she had brought for this purpose. The vault entrance began to close automatically, its segments folding inward with the same fluid precision with which they had opened. Before exiting completely, Emma placed her hand one last time against the closing entrance, silently promising to protect the vault's purpose. Through their connection, she felt a response, not in words but in certainty. The vault would remain secure, its defenses now fully activated. Only Emma could grant others access, and the crystalline formations throughout the crater would continue to evolve, creating an increasingly sophisticated protective perimeter. Emerging from the vault, Emma was startled by a sudden illumination. Flashlight beams cutting through the darkness from the crater rim. She had been discovered. "Dr. Winters!" A voice called out. "Please remain where you are. We mean you no harm." Emma recognized Diane Foster's voice, Harrington's security chief. Moving quickly, Emma secured her backpack and assessed her options. The western ravine she had used to enter was too distant to reach before being intercepted. She needed another approach. As if responding to her need, the crystalline formations nearest her began to shift, creating a path through their structures leading toward the eastern rim. Emma didn't hesitate. She followed the path as Foster and her team descended into the crater. The crystal garden seemed to respond to her movement, structures shifting to maintain her route while creating obstacles for her pursuers. Emma heard Foster cursing as formations changed position, blocking paths her team had been following moments before. "Dr. Winters," Foster called again, her voice now tinged with frustration. "We know what you've found. Mr. Harrington only wants to help protect it." Emma didn't respond, focusing instead on the path ahead. The vault was actively assisting her escape, using the crystalline network it had established throughout the crater to confuse and delay her pursuers. Reaching the crater's eastern slope, Emma began to climb. Behind her, Foster's team had split up, trying to outflank her by ascending at different points. Their flashlights created chaotic patterns of light and shadow against the crystalline formations. Halfway up the slope, Emma heard a vehicle engine start somewhere beyond the rim. They were positioning transportation to intercept her if she reached the top. Her options were narrowing rapidly. Again, the vault seemed to anticipate her need. A section of crystals at the rim above her began to glow more intensely, creating a beacon visible only from her position. Emma altered her course toward this signal, trusting the guidance. As she approached the illuminated section, she discovered why it had been highlighted, a narrow fissure in the crater wall, barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look. The opening was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through, leading to a natural tunnel that appeared to exit somewhere beyond the rim. Without hesitation, Emma entered the passage. Behind her, she heard Foster's team reaching the spot where she had vanished, their confusion evident in their urgent communications. The tunnel was a tight fit but navigable, illuminated by small crystalline formations that had established themselves along its length. These crystals responded to Emma's presence, brightening as she approached and dimming after she passed, creating a moving path of light that guided her forward while minimizing visible illumination at the tunnel entrance. After several minutes of careful movement through the winding passage, Emma emerged on a hillside several hundred yards beyond the crater rim. From this vantage point, she could see Foster's team still searching the crater, their flashlights creating frantic patterns of light in the darkness. Near the main access road, 2 black SUVs were positioned, their drivers scanning the perimeter. Emma moved quietly away from the crater, using the natural terrain for cover. The vault's guidance had given her the perfect escape route, one that Harrington's team, for all their technology and manpower, had never discovered. 2 hours of careful hiking brought Emma to the predetermined rendezvous point where Patricia's security contact waited with transportation. As they drove away from the crater property, Emma finally allowed herself to relax slightly, her hand resting protectively on the backpack containing the crystal fragment. "Did you get what you needed?" the driver asked, his eyes focused on the dark road ahead. "More than that," Emma replied. "I got exactly what the world needs." Dawn was breaking as they reached the safe house Patricia had arranged, a remote cabin owned by a client who valued privacy above all else. Emma's children were already there, having been moved from Sarah's house as a precaution once the operation began. Lily and Jake rushed to embrace her as she entered, their faces showing equal measures of relief and excitement. "Did you do it? Did you get back into the alien vault?" Jake asked, his voice hushed with awe. Emma nodded, setting her backpack carefully on the cabin's solid wooden table. "I did, and I brought back something that's going to change everything." Under her children's watchful eyes, Emma opened the specialized container, revealing the crystal fragment. In the cabin's dim light, it glowed with inner luminescence, its facets shifting subtly as if alive. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, reaching toward it but stopping short of touching it. "It's more than beautiful," Emma said. "It's a key to the future. And it's going to help us make sure that future belongs to everyone, not just to people like Victor Harrington." Over the next 24 hours, Emma implemented her disclosure plan with Patricia's help. First, they established the legal framework, creating the Global Innovation Trust, a non-profit foundation with an international board of directors including respected scientists, ethicists, and public policy experts from a dozen countries. Next, they prepared the initial disclosure package, a carefully curated selection of data about the crystal fragment and its potential applications, with enough detail to establish scientific legitimacy, but without revealing the vault's location or its most sensitive capabilities. Finally, they orchestrated simultaneous release of this information to multiple channels, scientific journals, major news organizations, influential research institutions, and key government agencies worldwide. This approach ensured that no single entity could suppress the disclosure or control the narrative. Once this goes public, Patricia warned, Harrington will use every resource at his disposal to discredit you and seize control of your discovery. Let him try, Emma replied. With newfound confidence, the evidence speaks for itself. And I'm not standing alone anymore. The initial public reaction exceeded even Emma's expectations. Within hours of the disclosure, the scientific community was electrified by the revelations. The crystalline material's properties defied existing physics in ways that could not be dismissed or explained away. Independent laboratories clamored for samples to verify the extraordinary claims. Major news organizations ran breaking stories with headlines like Colorado Professor Discovers Revolutionary Technology in Crater Purchase and Wilson Crater Contains Material Not of This Earth, claims respected geologist. Victor Harrington responded exactly as Patricia had predicted, first attempting to discredit Emma as a publicity-seeking fraud, then filing emergency injunctions claiming national security concerns, and finally offering billions for exclusive rights to the technology. But Emma had anticipated these moves. The Global Innovation Trust had already distributed sample crystals to laboratories in 7 countries, ensuring that no legal maneuver within the United States could contain the discovery. The Trust's international structure provided protection against any single government's attempt to classify or control the technology. Most importantly, Emma had included a detailed account of Harrington's earlier attempts to seize the crater and its contents in her disclosure package, effectively exposing his secret operations to public scrutiny. His government contacts, unwilling to be associated with corporate espionage against a civilian researcher, quickly distanced themselves from his efforts. 3 days after the disclosure, Emma sat with her children watching a special news broadcast. The president had just announced the formation of an international scientific commission to study the crystalline technology, with Emma Winters named as its director. The implications of Dr. Winters' discovery extend beyond national interests, the president stated. This technology represents a potential turning point for human civilization, with applications that could address our most pressing global challenges. The United States is committed to ensuring this knowledge benefits all of humanity. Jake turned to Emma with a grin. So you're kind of famous now, huh? Emma laughed, the sound carrying a freedom she hadn't felt in years. Apparently purchasing a crater isn't so insane after all. Lily, always more perceptive about the bigger picture, asked the question that really mattered. What happens now, Mom? With the vault and everything it contains? Emma considered her daughter's question carefully. The vault remains secure, its location protected by both legal mechanisms and its own advanced defenses. The crystal fragment she had retrieved contained enough revolutionary knowledge to keep humanity busy for decades, implementing technologies that would transform energy production, medicine, agriculture, and environmental restoration. Now we do the hard part, Emma answered honestly. We help humanity learn to use these gifts wisely. The vault didn't just give us technology, it gave us responsibility. The following month saw dramatic developments that vindicated Emma's approach. Early prototypes based on the crystalline technology demonstrated energy production efficiencies that defied conventional physics. Medical applications showed promising results in treating previously incurable conditions. Agricultural implementations doubled crop yields in initial tests while simultaneously restoring depleted soil. The Global Innovation Trust established research centers on 5 continents, each focusing on different applications of the technology. Emma insisted on open-source development models that prevented monopolization of the benefits, with special provisions ensuring that developing nations received equal access to the advances. Victor Harrington, his reputation damaged by exposure of his tactics, eventually approached Emma with a different proposition: legitimate partnership in developing specific applications, with binding commitments to ethical implementation and shared benefits. Emma negotiated terms that channeled his resources productively while preventing him from gaining controlling influence. "You could have been the wealthiest woman in history," he told her during their first face-to-face meeting. "Why choose this path instead?" Emma's answer was simple: because some discoveries aren't meant to be owned. They're meant to be shared. 6 months after her initial discovery, Emma stood once again at the crater rim, this time accompanied by a small, carefully selected team from the Global Innovation Trust. The crystalline garden had continued to evolve, creating structures of breathtaking complexity and beauty throughout the crater floor. The vault remained secure at the center, its presence now acknowledged, but its access strictly controlled under Emma's guidance. The team included representatives from diverse disciplines: quantum physics, medicine, environmental science, ethics, and governance. Each had been personally vetted by Emma and had demonstrated commitment to responsible implementation of the technology. Together, they would become the first authorized visitors to the vault itself. As they descended into the crater, Emma felt a profound sense of rightness about the path she had chosen. The ridicule she had endured for purchasing the crater now seemed trivial compared to the responsibility she had embraced. The financial struggles that had once defined her life had been replaced by a purpose far greater than personal security or professional recognition. "The formations are responding to our presence," observed Dr. Sofia Mendez, the team's quantum physicist, as crystalline structures shifted subtly to create a path for their group. "They're assessing us," Emma explained. "The vault is alive in ways we're just beginning to understand. It learns, adapts, and makes judgments about how much knowledge to share and with whom." Reaching the center of the crater, Emma placed her hands against the now familiar circular seam. The vault recognized her immediately, the entrance opening with fluid precision. As her team watched in amazement, Emma led them into the chamber that had changed her life and was now changing the world. The suspended crystal at the vault center pulsed with welcome, its facets shifting to acknowledge each visitor according to their specialty and purpose. Through her connection, Emma sensed the vault's approval of the team she had assembled, individuals chosen not for power or position, but for wisdom and integrity. "What you're seeing is beyond technology as we understand it," Emma told her awestruck colleagues. "It's a gift from a civilization that learned how to advance without destroying itself, a path they're offering to help us find." In the months and years that followed, the Global Innovation Trust guided humanity's integration of the vault's knowledge with remarkable success. The first generation of crystalline technologies addressed the most urgent global challenges. Clean energy replaced fossil fuels. Medical advances eliminated diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Agricultural innovations ended food insecurity worldwide, and environmental restoration began healing the damage from 2 centuries of industrial development. Emma Winters, once ridiculed as the professor insane enough to purchase a worthless crater, became known instead as the woman who changed human civilization. Yet she remained focused on the responsibility rather than the recognition, guiding the Trust's work with the same careful judgment that had earned the vault's selection in the first place. On the 10th anniversary of her discovery, Emma returned to the crater alone. The site had been designated an International Heritage Preserve, protected by both legal frameworks and the vault's own increasingly sophisticated defenses. The crystalline garden had matured into an ecosystem unlike anything else on Earth, a harmonious blend of terrestrial and extraterrestrial life that served as both guardian and demonstration of the vault's potential. Standing at the center, Emma placed her hands against the vault entrance one more time. The connection had deepened over the years, evolving from simple recognition to true partnership. Through this link, Emma had guided humanity's first steps toward a civilization worthy of the knowledge entrusted to her. The entrance opened, revealing the chamber that had become as familiar to her as her own home. The suspended crystal at the center had evolved as well, its structure more complex and its light more brilliant than when she first discovered it. As Emma approached, the crystal shifted its configuration, revealing something new, a representation of Earth surrounded by a network of light that spanned the globe. Through their connection, Emma understood what she was seeing, the beginning of a planetary crystalline network, an evolution of consciousness and technology that would eventually link humanity to the wider galactic community that had sent the vault. The message was clear: her work as guardian had succeeded. Humanity had proven itself capable of using the vault's gifts responsibly, taking the first steps toward a civilization advanced enough to join the cosmic conversation. Emma smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The insane purchase that had once threatened her family's financial security had become the cornerstone of a transformed world. The risks she had taken, the challenges she had faced, the opposition she had overcome, all had been necessary steps on a journey toward something greater than she could have imagined. As she left the vault that day, Emma thought about the headlines that had once mocked her. "You're insane to buy that crater." The judgment had been spectacularly wrong, but understandably so. Sometimes the greatest opportunities appear as foolish risks to those without the vision to see their potential. The $50,000 she had spent on a seemingly worthless crater had yielded not just the $350 million in crystalline materials first discovered, but technologies now valued at trillions and benefits to humanity beyond any price tag. More importantly, it had transformed a struggling single mother into the guardian of humanity's future, a role Emma Winters had proven herself worthy to hold. The vault continued its quiet work beneath the Colorado landscape, patient and purposeful as it had been for the millennia before Emma discovered it. But now it was no longer waiting. Now it was actively participating in the next phase of human evolution, guiding a species toward its potential with the help of the woman insane enough to believe in possibilities others couldn't see. And that, perhaps, was the greatest lesson of Emma's journey, that sometimes what looks like insanity to the world is actually the deepest wisdom. Sometimes the greatest discoveries await those brave enough to be ridiculed, determined enough to persist when others doubt, and generous enough to share what they find with everyone. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.